we've got our job here. Let's see. Hold this up. Customer notes say customer is hearing a loud engine noise at times when driving around. Customer unable to describe noise other than loud engine noise. One time last weekend the engine tried to overheat going up Lewiston Hill when it was hot out and has not overheated since. Diagnose engine noise. We're dealing with a 2009 Ford F-150. 2009 Ford F-150 I would not assume would have loud engine noises and overheating connected. But let's see what we find. Keep our mind open. Here it is. 2009 Ford F-150. Fire it up and see what we get. Heard a little bit of baffle noise from the dash. No extreme engine noises yet. Interesting, just looks like a lot of something. Who knows if it's related? Let's see where we're at here. Coolant level is low. That should be up more around here. You can see the shadow of my finger on the outside. That's low. Thinking about the overheating issue, wondering what we've got. Not see coolant in the radiator. That's going to be a problem. Wondering now about if the noise and the overheating is related. I'm wondering water pump bearings, that kind of thing. I'm not initially seeing a lot of play in that water pump pulley. Let's take this inside and do a cooling system pressure test. We're going to look at where that coolant is going first. I'm a little OCD about windshields. Best way to keep your windshield clear when you're running your wipers is to keep it just barely wet. Just barely wet. That gives the most scrubbing action. When these start losing oil pressure, this is the common 5-4 thing. When these start losing oil pressure, they get a phaser tick at idle. And if the engine was running hot, that's going to really reduce your oil pressure because the oil will be extra thin. So possible that's our link between the overheating and the noise. Look at that, 152,000 miles on this rig. That's when we start seeing a lot of 5.4 liter Triton issues. Hopefully that's not what we're dealing with here. Let's go do a pressure test and see what we get for coolant. Kind of hard to do this one-handed. Might need to sit you down for a second. Guess what's wrong with it?
It's probably got some cam chain problems.
Nah, I think it does. We're gonna find out. I think it might be exacerbated by overheating due to a coolant loss. Well, there's our coolant loss. I did notice when we first pulled it in that there was a lot of moisture up here. So we might need to resolve that first. That's serious. All right, we'll look more into this after we fix that. Needs a radiator. I'm gonna call that a diagnosis right there. All right, back with more later. So the thing we don't want to do is recommend the radiator and then afterwards get the engine all the way up to temperature and find out we have oil pressure issues and it needs an engine. So we want to get this engine up to temperature to actually see if we can replicate that noise he was talking about. And with the blown radiator, that's going to be a little bit difficult to make sure we do safely. We don't want to blow the engine while we're testing it. So I'm just going to dump in a ton of water here. This is just water that we're dumping in. We'll make sure that we've got a full cooling system. Since we know we're doing a radiator, I'm not going to worry about putting antifreeze in. That'd be a waste of money. So we're just gonna get this thing full of water, run it up to temperature, and see if we can replicate that engine noise he was describing. We're gonna run the system on hot. There's two circuits that the cooling system has. One runs through your heater and circulates coolant through the engine, and then the thermostat sits between that and your radiator. And when the engine gets up to temperature, the thermostat opens and pumps coolant through the radiator. So we want to make sure we've got heat here from the beginning, because that'll tell us that we've got coolant flowing through the engine's protected, and when we're safe to monitor, we're not going to get hot spots in the engine. So this thing's warming up. We've got still not great through the vents. So let's see if we can get this to burp a little bit. That concerns me, because that means there's probably a lot of air on that circuit, that cooling system circuit. Yeah, I'm not getting heat here. This is not good. Let's shut this down and see if we can burp this thing. Okay, we got it burped, and one of the things we're noticing is just how filthy this coolant is. So that's a little bit of a problem, but we're pretty much up to temperature. It's not making noise, but it took a ton of water, and I'm nervous that it wasn't overheating, is in quotes. It was actually overheating so hard and the sensor couldn't read it, because the sensor might not have had coolant being pumped to it. So we might have been in a really hard overheat condition here. That said, not seeing a lot of bubbling coming up through this. There's a little bit, as I would expect. I didn't have overpressurization before when I had it sealed off and was running it. So I'm hopeful we don't have blown head gaskets or something like that. But that is something we're gonna check here before we send it back to the customer and recommend the radiator. As long as we don't have symptoms of blown head gasket, we'll put a radiator in, go out and drive it a bunch and see, hopefully we don't get a bunch of engine noise. But that's where we're at with this one. We'll update and probably down in the comments. I don't know if I'll continue the video on this one. But that's kind of what we go through whenever we're doing diagnosis. All right, have a great day.